91X.
Hi, this is Oz 91X. We're backstage with Chris from Muse. Thanks for taking time, Chris.
Cool,
I
no
appreciate it. You guys been in town for a few days, doing some rehearsals and stuff?
No, we've actually been in LA for a couple of days, and we came up today. So
well, we got a report from one of the bellhops at the W on like Tuesday of last week. He said, "Oh yeah, they all rolled into town. They're here early." So
right, no,
not the case.
That's not, well, the crew guys have been here for a while.
Right.
I think they came straight from, because we were in Japan about a week ago, and I think they came straight from Japan here to set the gear up. And I think the plan was to have 5 days of rehearsals.
Didn't work out that way. So what have you been doing in Los Angeles?
Mostly getting over jet lag, but we actually did a video shoot yesterday for a single that's actually probably not going to be a single here. So we came over to do that, and then it's always nice to come in a couple of days early because there's nothing worse than doing a show jet lagged, you know.
Right, and Dom lives in LA, right? He off and on, or kind of part time?
Yeah, I think kind of part time. Yeah, I mean he did have a house here for a bit, which he doesn't have anymore, but. I think Dom, he doesn't really like the English winter time, you know, because we don't really. Having said that, it is snowing at the moment, which is it's kind of cool when it snows, but usually it's just grey and rain. But I'm not one of these people that's really that bothered about the weather, you know. I like the extreme weather of England, but Dom likes the sunshine, you know.
Right. Well, we're looking forward to the show. This will be the first one on the tour. When you go on tour, I was just curious. There's a lot of time to kill. I was wondering what the best ways that you pass time, because I know you guys are going to be playing ping pong with some listeners. Ping pong with some ping pong with some ping pong with ping pong.
Come on.
Ping pong. Ping pong. Ping pong.
1, 3. Me, yourself, yeah.
I also saw that you, from time to time, play soccer with people in towns that you roll into.
Yeah, well, I started playing football again maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I was constantly trying to get all the crew guys to play and whoever else was on tour or maybe local crew or whatever, and it was so difficult to get a proper game together. A lot of the crew didn't turn up, and there was me and 2 other guys, and this whole team had turned up ready to play us. So as a last resort, I sent a tweet out, hoping that people would turn up. And it was a great success. It was bringing loads of people. But you not only get players turning up, you get an audience as well, which obviously makes it a lot more fun when you've got people watching. So pretty much everywhere we go, we do a football game and send tweets out, and usually at least once a week. You know, it's great fun.
So everybody should definitely check out Twitter, because you might get a chance to play with your favorite band. Yeah, I read about that. I don't know where it was. Maybe in Chicago at Lollapalooza or somewhere. But yeah, they said that you sent out a tweet, and all of a sudden you had enough people for a game. And,
well, sometimes we get hundreds of people turn up. I mean, most recently we did one in Bologna in Italy. And we had a lot of players turn out for that. But last time we were in LA, we did one. And I think we had about 300 people turn up, you know. And it was only an 8-a-side game. It wasn't like in a big stadium or anything. It was a small AstroTurf pitch with a fence around it with just shitloads of people all the way around the edge of it. It was amazing, yeah.
Awesome. You guys had a big year last year. You played Saturday Night Live. You played the closing of the Olympic Games. Played the Grammys. Released a new album. What was a personal highlight, you think, for you?
Wow. I don't know. It's difficult to say, really. I mean, like you said, there's so many things that went on, but I guess finishing the album was a highlight, you know. We were working on the album for the best part of a year, which I think is probably the longest chunk of time we've been in the studio. So to finally get that finished and out there was nice, because I think it's something we're all proud of. You know, we think it's a great album. We think it's one of the best we've done to date, and yeah, I think we kind of entered into some new areas with this album, which is why we're probably so proud of it.
Yeah, you sing on a couple of songs on this album, and you recorded this album with a little more clarity than you have in previous albums.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Talk about the song "Liquid State." Is that kind of address some of the things that you've been going through?
I think so. Yeah, I think that was probably written around a time where I was maybe coming out of the bad times and maybe coming into some good times. But it was a bit of a reflective song and quite an angry song, I think. You know, I think it was more of a song of how angry I was with myself. You know, for getting into a certain way. You know. But yeah, I mean, I listen to that song now, and it doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me now. You know, I think at the time it was quite meaningful to me, but now it's just it's just a kick-ass riff that we like playing on stage. You know, it's kind of amazing how the meaning of songs changes over time, and what they mean to you when you wrote them doesn't necessarily mean that 4 years down the line. You know.
Is this something you've been wanting to do for a long time, sing on one of the records? Or?
Not really, no.
No?
I mean, I think I'd always wanted to write some stuff, you know. I'd always wanted to write music, and I had been writing music, and I think the only reason that it never really happened in the band was because I didn't write lyrics and didn't finish lyrics and vocal lines and things like that. So that was always a bit of a hurdle for me. So this time when it came to making this album, I just thought, if I'm going to get a song on this album, I'm going to have to write some lyrics and finish the song, you know. Right. And but I kind of had it in the back of my mind that Matt would probably sing it, and we talked about it a lot, you know, when we were in the studio, and we discussed how it could work, whether there would be a dual vocal situation going on, or whether Matt would just sing them outright. And right at the last minute, you know, when the music was finished, Matt said, "I think you should sing them. You know, I think they're your lyrics, they're personal." And it'd be a great thing for the band to have, you know, that other singer, you know, a different option or something different, you know.
Yeah, it gives it a whole new dimension to the band. I was watching you guys on Saturday Night Live. Talk about that bass guitar. It had like an LED screen in the middle. What was that all about? That's an awesome bass guitar.
It's kind of two guitars stuck together, really. It's we're trying to figure out a way of playing the bass line for Madness live, because obviously on the album it's a synthesizer. And I didn't really like the idea of, you know, pushing buttons on stage. So we were looking at different options, whether there was some kind of bass guitar or bass synth that we could use that would control another synth. And as if by magic, someone in Japan just happened to invent one just in time. And Matt found it on some website. But because of the last chorus of that song, I have to play real bass. So I had to figure out a way of actually sticking the two together. So the guy that makes my basses, I bought him this thing which is called a Katara, and said, "You need to stick that on top of the bass." And 3 months later he turned up, and there it was. And it's about all anyone's talked about for the last sort of 6 months. It's quite a unique piece, I think. It
looks amazing, and it sounded awesome. It seems like every record, every time you guys put out a record, you like to kind of raise the bar for the band. This time you recorded with a full choir. You also brought in some horns from Chicago, like some of Stevie Wonder's guys.
Yeah, there was just some guy who came to the session, one of the horn players, and he was, I think he played on almost every record that had horns on in the 70s. He was
Superstition.
Superstition was one of them, but his whole background was amazing. I mean, I think he started in the 60s, but he's played with people like Madonna and, obviously Stevie Wonder. It was just, I mean, I went on his website afterwards, and it was almost every big record that you've ever heard of. He's on it somewhere.
Kind of like the Funk Brothers in Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it sounds great. Now let's talk about the tour. The last time you went out, it was massive. You had the rising platforms. You had all kinds of lasers. Is there pressure this time around to do something that epic? And can you give us a little insight on what we can expect?
Well, I think it probably is just as epic. I think it's a very different type of show, though. I mean, I think visually it's still quite amazing. We have this big pyramid that hangs above our head.
An inverted pyramid, right?
Well, it could go both ways. That's the beauty of it. It moves. I mean, when we start the show, you don't see it, and then I think about 4 or 5 songs in, the pyramid comes down, but then it can go inside out and then form all these other shapes. So that's kind of the focal point of the show. But I think also the way that the stage has actually been set up this time, I feel like the shows have been a bit more personal. There's a big thrust at the front that me and Matt can go out on, and we sing a few songs out there. There's also a big platform at the front which we can jump down onto, and you're within touching distance of the crowd. So I feel like that element more than anything else has added to it, really, because I felt that on the last tour with the Towers, as much as it was visually amazing, there was a bit of a barrier between us and the crowd, particularly when we're up on these 3-metre high towers. And I think we just wanted to knock those barriers down a little bit and just make the show a little bit more intimate. if that's possible in an arena. You know?
Now, when I saw you at the Grammys, it was really theatrical. You had like actors on stage. Will any of that play a part in this tour?
No, well, we always wanted to do that, and but it's really difficult to actually do it touring because you've got like another 10 tour buses for the people that you'd have to carry around. So it's those kind of things, and like whenever we've got orchestras in or anything like that, it works really well for one-offs, you know. Right. But I think just the logistics of touring, it doesn't really work.
All right, now you've got 7 records now to choose from, 6 or 7 records. Any favorite songs to play live for you personally, and why?
Wow. I think at the moment my favorite song to play live is probably a toss-up between "Follow Me" and "Supremacy." I think. I think "Supremacy" because it's just a ballsy riff, isn't it? It's one of those that as soon as Matt starts playing that riff, you can just see the faces in the crowd and everyone's, this is rock, you know. Right. "Follow Me," I just find "Follow Me" really uplifting. I think it's one of the more uplifting tracks on the album.
That's the one that features Matt Bellamy's kid, his heartbeat,
the heartbeat,
right? Yeah.
The heartbeat, and that was one of the songs actually that when we first started working on the album, I think it was the first one that actually really stood out to me as being a really good track, you know. And that often happens, you know, sometimes when you're working on studio and you're listening to demos and things like that, there's always 1 or 2 tracks that immediately grab your attention, and I think "Follow Me" was one of them, you know.
Yeah. And what about, what was it like playing for the closing ceremonies of the Olympics?
It was great. It was a bit weird actually, because we spent about 2 days in rehearsals and, you know, met all the other people on the bill at various different times over the rehearsal period. But then when we actually got to the Olympics, the closing ceremony, all of the artists were put in this big green room. And it was just the strangest mix of artists. I mean, you'd never, ever get that bill ever again at any festival or anything like that. I mean, it was us, The Who, the Spice Girls, Madness. You know, it was just such a really strange...
The Pet Shop Boys, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But it was amazing. I mean, we were, I think about half an hour before we went on, we got dragged to the back of the stage, and obviously we were watching the whole thing happening. But the thing that amazed me more about it was during the dress rehearsal through the day, which is the reason why we were there all day, was because there was supposed to be this run-through of the whole show, which didn't happen. And we got dragged over to the stadium at about 6 o'clock to just run through our song. And it was absolute chaos in there. There was people running around. I mean, while we were playing, the Spice Girls were still driving around in their taxis, and people were like sweeping up, and it was just an absolute mess. And then we finished our run-through, walked back to the green room, and the BBC coverage had started, and it was just spotless within about 15 minutes. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, the organisation that goes into those things is absolutely ridiculous, and you don't really get a sense of that when you watch it on TV. It's just so seamless when it happens, but when you see the chaos that is going on through the day, it blows you away, you know. Well,
there was some chaos on this side of the Atlantic too, because I think that whoever was carrying it, I think NBC, they cut away just before you guys went on stage, and Twitter exploded, going, "Where's Muse? I've been watching for 4 hours for Muse," and you cut away.
Well, I heard about that, and I also heard about you know, certain parts that were cut out during the opening ceremony as well. But we're very lucky we have the BBC, and there's no commercials on the BBC, so you just get uninterrupted coverage. And I think that's one of the only things I find very difficult about America is watching television, because there's so many commercials. Yeah. But England's becoming the same, actually. It's BBC is fine because there's no commercials, but a lot of the other channels, the commercial breaks are getting closer and closer together, you know. But that annoys me a little bit. But yeah.
Well, welcome back to America. We're looking forward to the first show. It's we're going to air this tomorrow, so it'll be tonight. And good luck. And good luck with the rest of the tour. And congratulations on the new record.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, mate.